Okay, multiple times. One. Hello and welcome to Prospect Theater Project's talkback for our play reading projects, The Lonely Planet. Our talkbacks are really vital to the mission of Prospect Theater Project, and we're really happy to have you all here with our cast and director to learn more about the play, engage, and promote discussion about the work you've seen here with Prospect Theater Project. Today we have with us our cast and director of The Lonely Planet. We have, starting on the far side, Sean Gates, who played Carl. We have in the center Tracy Strong, who was our director, and Colton Dennis, who played Jody. We're really excited to have you all here today. If you want to participate in the Q&A portion of this event, you can do it online on Facebook Live, on Vimeo, on the Vimeo link that you all have gotten through your email. If you're participating on a mobile device, you will need to access Vimeo on the mobile app. It's the only way to participate in the talkback. Otherwise, you can Facebook message us. Okay, our first question is for Tracy. Tracy, why did you choose The Lonely Planet as a production to do for our first play reading project this season?
Well, it was mostly I had gathered up a few plays that I felt were talking to the times that we're living in, and this happened to be one of them. It deals with that isolation that I feel that many of us are dealing with right now, and so that was why I offered this play up. I was just happy that it was chosen, and I got to work with these two.
I know you've said that you've worked with John and Colton before. When have you also worked with John and Colton?
Well, at the same time, the three of us working together was next fall, which was done at Prospect here. It was the first show actually done at this location on K Street, which was really exciting because we're the guinea pigs then, and we got to be the guinea pigs with the first virtual stage reading this time, as John refers to us as, and that was a lot of fun. But I worked with I've worked with Colton a little more than John. I think that was like really the only time we really got to work together, which was really cool. It was like 6.5 years ago, and then he like left us in the Central Valley for a while. So it was a real treat to find out he was in town and we could like get back together and do another show that also dealt with grief.
Wonderfully said. I think we're having a little bit of a microphone issue, though. Can
Is
of
it
course
because
with
I
with with,
wasn't
with
too
live
close? Do I need to
streaming,
be closer?
yeah, a little closer
Oh,
and maybe a
okay. So
little
I need to
louder.
like kiss the microphone. I told you I was bad with
No,
microphones.
you're doing a wonderful job, Tracy. We're gonna send in our intern to go check the mic and see if it's okay. Our intern, his name is not important, but he's doing a wonderful job here, earning some great college credits here for Prospect Theater Project. Thank you. He's with our
Is it better
senior
now?
citizen community college program.
I am sending my voice to you. Can you hear me now?
Any feedback from the audience would be great. I think you're good now. What do you think from the audience? Weird. Okay. It was fine a couple seconds ago. Let's see. We're just gonna move on to the next question then. And we'd love some feedback to see if you can hear Tracy or not. Um, so you mentioned the how relevant the play is today. I mean, why else? The play talks about a pandemic,
Right. It's
and
and
we
while it doesn't like flat out say it, it is the HIV pandemic. The play was written in 1993, published 1994. So it was like right at the time that AIDS was a death sentence still. And but it had this strange element of one of the characters scared to leave their home, which kind of created this strange like similarity to what we're dealing with right now, dealing with the pandemic and the isolation of quarantining in our homes, not being able to connect with people in the same way. And it was really interesting because while we were table working through the text, it forced us to question what would it have been like to have be dealing with the coronavirus back in the 90s when we didn't have the technology to stay connected like we do now, would we have been like experience things like Jody was experiencing at that time period? So that was a really interesting discussion that we were able to have during the table work we were having. And even though we're like, this is a story that is about gay men dealing with AIDS, um, you know, we have to like at least say this is what we're dealing with as actors, as directors. You know, you have to name it. It can't just be like this vague thing when you're breaking down the work. Uh, but because we're living in a new time that's dealing with a pandemic as well, it still forced us to like look at how it speaks to us now and what we're going through right now in this day and age.
yeah, when I was watching them myself, I saw a lot of similarities, especially in Colton's character of just a fear of going outside. I mean that's isolation and almost agoraphobic behavior. Colton, I have a question for you. Your character had three dreams. Of those three dreams, um, what was your impression of them? I know they were all different, but what was your overall impression of those three dreams?
I think those, to me, those dreams were like him gaining the courage to leave. You got the first dream where he's a fireman, and he has his fireman shirt, and everyone's telling him, "Hey, you got to help get the baby from the burning building and all that kind of stuff." And he goes to his friend Carl, and you know, he's really no help. He's like, don't let us down, basically, right? It's kind of still encouraging, that voice in his subconscious trying to get him to get out. The second one is the boxers. He has these everlast boxers, and he's going out in the fighting ring, and he talks about the courage, the confidence he finally feels, and I think now he's gotten even further, right? Before he didn't get to rescue anybody, but now at least he's in the ring, so he's gotten a little further, but still, this time the fear holds him back. And the third time, he's already been out, he made it outside, he did what he needed to do, but now Carl is in a different place, and now they're together. They're experiencing this together. There's no longer is Carl trying to push him to do what he needs to do, but now he's there for, I think, Carl at the end, and I think you see the progression of where Jody is, and unfortunately, what happens to Carl at the end. So yeah, here.
It's really cool though because like it's sad with Carl and that progression, but it also leaves us with hope because of the fact that Jody's now in a new place where he's leaving the house and he's becoming the caretaker that Carl was. And it just, I feel that it leaves us with hope, even though it's, we're having to deal with the grief of losing Carl as well.
I think that's a really good point. I mean, there's hope at the end, and he's got the courage to go on. And to me too, there are parallels like what I was going through personally through the pandemic. There were times anxiety took over, and I just didn't. At first it felt kind of nice. I didn't have to be social. I'm kind of an introvert anyway. I didn't have to go out anymore. I didn't have, being a single person, I don't have to go out and, go on a date or anything like that, or I didn't have any obligations to go out and be, present. And that was kind of freeing at first. And then it kind of flipped, at a certain, after a few months. And so it's interesting, the parallels of this whole play. I mean, you talked about the pandemic and everything, and I think we talked about too at one time, one of our discussions when we were first reading the play, the first or second time, we talked about, like Dr. Fauci was the doctor at that time for the AIDS epidemic, and here he is again for the coronavirus pandemic. So there are a lot of similarities that are happening, and The Lonely Planet, what an appropriate title for such a thing. Sometimes that's what there are times that I personally felt like that during this pandemic.
We're going through a little bit of technical problems. Thank you guys for bearing with us on our audience, and we're gonna keep going with our questions here. And this next question is for John Cates. John, your character, he lied excessively throughout the play. What was your impression of that that written character flaw?
Well, like he says, he has a monologue in I think it's scene 2, Act 1, scene 2, where he says, "I really don't get much done." He really doesn't. He just tries to do some dishes. He tries to write letters, actually write them instead of just planning to write them, which I think is something that we can all kind of connect to during the pandemic, right? That feeling of there's something more I should be doing with my time. I have all this opportunity to do something. What is the thing in my way? Why am I just on Twitter for 5 hours instead of doing, But in that monologue, he says that the people that get stuff done with their days are mutants to him, and he admires the people who go out and restore art or dust for fingerprints or even water people's plants, or write for tabloids. And I think that in kind of taking on their lives, I think is a way of memorializing them, because he has another monologue where he talks about how none of these people were famous. Nobody mourned their death. Society doesn't value their deaths. They really place all the emphasis on like the deaths of like famous people. And so I think it's his way of grieving them is to try to put himself in their shoes and really live their story, which dovetails with his frustration with himself and not really doing anything real in his own life. So I think he kind of lives vicariously through them. And like Hamilton, who lives, who dies, who tells your story, I think that he keeps those people from being forgotten by hanging on to their chairs and telling their stories to Jody. And of course, in the end, Carl himself becomes a story for Jody to take out into the world. He like achieved his purpose of having you leave your home, and now 1,000 generations live in you. Now it's Jody's out in the world because of Carl's story.
Wonderfully said. Thank you so much, John, for sharing that insight. So it looks like we fixed the microphone problem. Thank you, audience, for being patient. We really appreciate it.
Should we go back and do all those questions again?
We're gonna do a quick touch back on those questions.
Quick recap.
A quick little recap. So we'll start off with Tracy again. Tracy, let's rewind. Put the rewind boots back
Oh,
on, and
boy.
don't feel like you need to.
I don't
reiterate
remember
things.
what I said.
It's okay. It's okay.
Okay.
What drew you to Lonely Planet? What drew you to this play?
Oh, let me go back to I had selected like a handful of or so of plays that I felt were speaking to the times that we were living in. The reason I chose this play is it's it how it's dealing also it's dealing with an epidemic, not a pandemic. Look, I actually get to say it correctly this time. And the isolation that many of us have been feeling over the past several months in response to that. And I thought that that spoke really well to the times we're living. And I feel that, like with stage readings, we really want to choose shows that we might not be able to produce that speak to the current situations we're going through. I also just I really like the playwright Dietz. I think I was introduced to him back when I was in high school by my high school teacher who chose to produce God's Country, which is really far out for a high school. So check that out. But that was really why I chose this one as a possibility. I was really excited when it got chosen, and I was actually offered to direct it, and I was able to work with these two again, which has been an absolute treat because I love their chemistry. They have awesome chemistry on stage, and they really get to the heart of the story just beautifully. And so it was just a treat all around.
Thank you, and thank you again for saying it again.
Totally differently.
Yeah. Colton, let's go back to your question real quick. Colton, your character described three dreams throughout the play. What was your impression of those dreams?
Yeah, so the first dream, he's a fireman because he got this shirt that looked like a fireman's shirt with the badge and everything, or from a thrift store. And everyone's telling him he's a fireman. He's got to go, save the baby from the burning building and all that kind of stuff. Get a ladder and it's him trying to gain courage to leave, And this is kind of up in the ante. And then he's got Carl there, and he's telling Carl, "Hey, Carl's there. You're there, Carl. He's always in his dreams." And he's trying to ask him to, let these people know I'm not really a fireman. I'm just wearing a fireman's shirt. And he goes, "Don't let us down." He's trying so hard to, I think it parallels his real life where he's trying to gain the courage to leave, do what he needs to do, get out, get tested, see what the results are, get back into society again. And then he's always got Carl there pushing him. The next dream is him wearing the boxer shorts, the Everlast boxer shorts, and he gets pushed out into the ring to fight, and he feels this confidence finally, and so he's going a little bit further, but Carl's there still kind of making sure that he's sticking to it. And then the third dream, of course, is after he had gotten his test and the results were negative, he's gotten the confidence to go out in society again, but now Carl is negative and are positive. I want to say that right. He comes back positive and is dying, and so his dream of being in a band, being in this concert, being pushed out on stage, he's there with Carl. Carl's there right beside him, and both of them are singing his favorite song. And that's and again, when we talked about the first time, that's where the hope is. And so there's a hopefulness there, and I think Jody's saying that as he goes through this next stage of Carl's life, the end of his life, he's going to be right beside him. So
It's beautifully said, Colton. You want something else to add?
I also just realized, not to answer your question for you, but hearing you answer this question twice now, I just realized that the thing, each of those dreams is there's a moment of like stepping out over a ledge, right, or like a leap of faith. But the thing that's on the other side of them becomes progressively better, right? In the first one, you're running into a fire, which is just a no-win scenario, right? I mean, firemen do that, but people don't want to do that. And the second one is a boxing match, which although it's a scary situation, it's something that a boxer would sign up to be in, and you could win, and you might get beat up, but you might get some prize money or whatever on the other end of it. And then the third one is just a party, right? It's just we're just being rock stars. And so it's that thing of like getting past that fear, getting past that barrier. But the thing that's on the other side of it is like better and better and more worth doing every time in each of those dreams. That's it.
Great observation. Great. So this question comes from Sherry, and it's directed towards John. And it says, is it better not to know people? And in parentheses, the man Carl almost dated drove into a sidewalk cafe of patrons, right? Is it better not to know people? If you want to elaborate on that question, that'd be great. But what's your initial take on that question? Maybe it's,
well, if we mean, is it better not to know people in the sense of I just don't know anybody and I'm completely alone in my life?
I think it's going through.
I would say
in
no.
the play, how is like I don't, Colton's character, your character, I don't know you. I don't.
Right.
Yeah. So it's better not to know someone that on that deeper level.
No, I don't think so. I think you want to know the people in your circle as well as possible, right? I think maybe if Carl had really known that guy that he didn't end up dating, maybe they would have talked about his problems and he could have convinced him not to drive a car into a cafe full of people. I think, I mean, Carl says maybe it's better not to know. I would disagree with that. And I think the play is. I think Carl would disagree with that too. I think he says that to Jody, but his whole gimmick, his whole thing is trying to remember people and put himself in their shoes and construct these elaborate stories about like the things they want and the things that they feel and the things they do throughout their day. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, it's the thing is, I feel like Carl's trying to say is that if you know people, like really know them, you have to know their dark parts too. And sometimes we just don't want to know people's dark spots. We want to have the lies. We want the made up stuff. Even though we might say that we don't, it's just like it's easier to cope with the good than to have to like live in people's dark spots. I'm not saying that that's. I just think on a surface level, that's that's what we're dealing with is like knowing people means knowing their dark parts too. And I think Carl had a lot of dark parts that he was going through that he just wasn't necessarily sharing because he's was concerned about getting this guy to live.
I think though, I think we all have dark parts, right? That's part of being human. And I think if you idolize people and pretend that they don't, if you just reject the darkness in other people, I think you deny the darkness in yourself. And I think it's important to be honest with yourself and recognize the ways in which you are a piece of shit and see those in other people and accept them and make space for them and not deny them in yourself and not reject them when you see it in other people, because everybody's a little messed up.
This question is for the entire cast, whoever feels like answering. It's from Lexi. In your opinion, what is the relationship between cartography and personal legacy? in the play?
Relationship between what?
Cartography, map making. Cartography.
The relationship between cartography and personal history,
Personal legacy.
personal legacy. Oh, Lexi, that's a really good question. You're the cartographer, so
Um,
Well, my initial response is, well, the Greenland problem. He talks about the map and the distortions, trying to fix a problem. And so trying to fix a problem, you create this distortion. And so everyone thinks that's how the world or the map, in the case, looks. And we're used to that map. But really, it looks like something else. When you put a globe and you flatten it out, it distorts. And we have our distortions of how we view the world, how we perceive the world, our world view. We have our own distortions from how we look at the world, and finding that truth sometimes is just hard to find. I think that's each of us has our own kind of Greenland problem, to a certain extent. Whatever that, if you think about the social movements that are going on right now, that we're going through, our history, our education, that we're taught a certain education, and we believe that it's from a certain perspective, American white perspective, but there is other perspectives that haven't been taught, and so when those are pointed out, there are a certain group of us that say, hey, that's not our history, that's not American, but actually it is. We just haven't seen it yet. That's our American Greenland problem right now, is that there is more to our history than what we've been taught. And I think, going down an individual personal level, we all kind of have that. We all have either hurt that we've gone through, and then we have this perception of like this kind of person, it's a bad person, so you stay around away from those people, those kind of things. The narratives that we create, yeah.
I just said the narratives we create to cope. Yeah, because I think we as humans have to create narratives for ourselves to cope. Uh, like when we think about those, like when I think about those maps, I feel like how they serve a very specific purpose, and then it gets looked at like beyond like the specific purpose that it was created for, and then thus creates like a new narrative. Um, but on like that personal legacy, it's like I really feel that it's that coping mechanism uh, that we as humans utilize to survive this big bad world we're living in. That like we have to tell ourselves these stories, like your storytelling is the same thing as like your mapping, like utilizing mapping, that they're both these coping mechanisms so that you can feel at home in yourself as you go through life. um
you describe maps as a collection of what's known, but they contain a few lies, right? That's exactly what my stories are. And it probably goes without saying that maps themselves are a legacy, right? Somebody else went out and like measured that coast and mapped the coastline, so you don't have to. Your travels are built upon the thing that they did, which is a legacy that you leave behind. End of thoughts. Great question, Lexi. Thank you for that question.
It was a great question. Next question from Linda. 2 lines that stood out for me were, "We're friends, but we never been lovers." And then near the end, when Jody speaks of the man in the waiting room who says, "Falling in love saved my life." Would one of you like to speak about friendship and love in the play? So the roles of friendship and love. Hold on. I no longer hear you. Is your microphone still on? We're going to send the intern in again.
Oh, wait, no. Is it working now?
Yep, it's working now.
Thank you, intern.
Actors. Okay, so the role of friendship and love
Love in the
throughout the play.
I'll say what I said before. Our characters clearly have love for each other, although they're not in a relationship. I think in this case, Carl's absolutely right. I mean, the right combination of small talk and outfit will get you a lover, but friendship is really difficult. Certainly does. Yeah. Oh, you said it.
That friendship takes work. That's all I said. I the concept of friendship was like one of those things that like really started to stand out to me as we started working through the play. Actually, initially I came in and I was like, this is a play about grief and fear, and how it is inevitable in life. And I like, as we read it, I'm like, I do not know why I miss saying that this is a play about friendship, because like to me that's like, almost at the forefront is this friendship, this love relationship amongst friends. And how valuable friendship is, especially right now with this like time of isolation. Like we really need those people in our lives that that give us a reason to keep doing what we're doing. And that was like one of the things that I really loved about the relationship between Jody and Carl, is that their friendship actually did give them purpose. I felt it gave Jody a reason to try to fight his fear. It gave Carl a reason to stick around and keep doing what he was doing. Like I really feel like Carl, like there was definitely texts that were very suicidal type text. And at times I almost felt like some of the stories of the man that it's better off not knowing all the details. Like, was that actually Carl feeling like he might blow over those people? I mean, towards the beginning, he talked about being so bored of people. Like, I could definitely see that like connection with those two concepts. And just like how love is just, love is a reason to keep going. um which we get to with that waiting room experience, was just the love is a reason. Love. um I've lost total track of what I was saying. Yeah.
Also, and I can't remember since we didn't memorize the play. I'm pretty sure it's Jody, and I'm paraphrasing, but he does say around this same scene, I think, that friendships are hard, lovers are easy. It's like, lovers kind of come and go in our lives, but friendships, they're harder because the we for friendships to last, you have to work at it. And I think you kind of mentioned that too, but their friendship is something that really means something. And how sometimes friends, if they become lovers, that ruins a friendship, and then sometimes it's over. And what could that friendship could have been? And I think that's the thing between them. They have this great understanding for each other as friends, a great love for each other as friends. If it went to the next level, that it wouldn't be there anymore, maybe. So
Okay, we have a quick follow-up question from Linda about the same topic. Why does Jody leave Carl when he needs him? Why does Jody leave when Carl needs him?
I don't think I leave. I mean, I think I leave at the end of the scene. I mean, he's there, but I think, and I think the dream I have leading up to leaving him is saying I'm going to be there with him. Is how I interpret it. I mean, I leave at the end, but maybe the next morning I come back. Yeah. So maybe it was symbolic for the playwright to say this is like maybe this is the end of Carl's life. But if this is not the end of Carl, if the play continued, we had the next scene after this, it'd be the next morning. Hey, Carl, we do our same thing all over again, kind of, right? But maybe I'd hope that, that Jody would step up and take the place of you and give you the courage that you need to do to go through the next phase that you had to go through. I mean, that's how I would interpret it. But I never thought that I was like leaving you. But I think it was a poignant moment for the end of the play. But maybe you have something to add, Tracy.
I agree. I never really took it as Jody leaving Carl. I really took it as it was just Carl's end, and so like it was more symbolic, just like pretty much his chair um, joining the other chairs and Jody taking on what Carl used to do, which was care for these people who had been lost but weren't really being remembered and being cared for. Like, and I think I really think this deals a lot with the time period and the fact that it was AIDS. A lot of people in that time period died alone. Their families left them, their friends left them, their lovers left them, and they died alone. And Carl was one of those people that didn't want people to die alone and was passing on that legacy. Look, we're at that word again. Passing on that legacy to Jody. That's how I didn't really see him leaving. I saw him actually just taking on the responsibility that Carl had.
I don't think Carl died that night. I think it's if we're going to talk about the next scene, like the next day, I think Carl has a lot of time left where he dies really slowly and terribly, and I think Jody's there for all of it. I don't think he left him alone. I think he left him alone with his thoughts that night. But it's his story. He'll be back in the morning. He's got nowhere else to go. Yeah.
Yeah, as a friend would do, be there for their friend as they need them the most.
Absolutely.
Um,
And I honestly, I don't think Carl's done collecting chairs either. I think there will be a point at which he becomes so weak he can't go out and get any more chairs. But I think if anything, the fact that he knows that he's running out of time, I think there's more chairs coming.
we have a question.
I like that point because I'm like, I wonder if Jody's going to help you with, get those chairs. I mean, you're losing strength. You probably would need some help. That'd be something to do together.
Yeah, I definitely think he does because like once he really understands what the chairs mean, like you change how you treat the chairs even, from get them out of here, tossing them to, I mean, like we didn't stage it, but to like using care, just setting them, so like your whole perception of the chairs changes by what.
What's really funny about this is that at the beginning of Act 2, we have this exact conversation where I'm like, what happens after the play's over? Like, what happens to all the chairs? And you're like, it's just fiction, man. Don't worry about it. And I'm like, no, there's still more story. So, congratulations, Carl, asking questions about what happens after the play.
we we have a question from Scott. Can you talk a little about how shifts in perspective change how we feel and how you work that idea into the show? How shifts in perspective change how we feel and how you work that idea into the show.
Well, I mean, shifts in perspective. Just like how our perspective changes. I'm trying to think how we worked it in the show specifically. I mean, because we definitely like there was definitely shifts in perspective, primarily going on with Jody's character. Carl's character more like your perspective, like with the death. Like we just started to see how you truly felt about all your friends dying.
over that. But like we saw some huge perspective shifts with Jody, just like like for example, the chair incident that I had mentioned, but also like through the like the whole arc, from the beginning of just being with your dreams like really show like your perspectives changing, and like from like just not wanting to go out at all, being fearful, I don't belong here, to I want to go out, I'm just scared. So your perspective was like changing over like with your arc. um how we like showed that in there. I think that Colton just did a really good job at capturing the arc of the character, and like getting to the point of knowing that he needed to be tested and being ready for it. Um, you just did an amazing job. I think um, John, like just like dealing with like the rage that he's dealing with, losing all his friends, and just dealing with also like the times of like how his friends were like they deserved it, they got what they had coming, and just that rage coming in, and shifting him. um I just feel like the actors really got the arc of their characters, and that's where we're seeing those perspectives shift. And there was a lot of talk about perspectives because we were talking about fake news, and how like the media gives us lies, which is very prevalent right now with like the media bubbles, and how depending on what media bubble you're going in, you have a whole different idea of what is real in our world. And I feel like the text really captured that, even though it was years before right now. So I I don't know if you guys want to.
Just to go off of what you just said, yeah, looking at different media bubbles, like, you know, it's like looking at two different kinds of maps, right? Like, is it the Mercator map or the Peters projection map, right? It's like that's like, if you're a Fox News viewer or a MSNBC viewer, it's the same continents, but how is that information being compressed into a digestible form, and for what purpose? Like, for who? Is this a map used to navigate ocean ways, or is this a map used to give accurate sizes of continents, right? It's the same information, but it's all being compressed differently. And so then, of course, if that's the only map you're using to look at the world, when someone shows you another map, you're like, what the hell is this, dude? This is crazy.
I have a question. So, your character John talked about the differences in grieving for people who died from AIDS during that time, and then those who died of other reasons, right? They deserved it. Do you think, or can you talk a little bit about the lack of empathy we have on some people have today for those who fall to coronavirus? You know, um, I could think of a couple right now, like these are elderly people. They should
Yeah.
sacrifice themselves to the economy, that kind of stuff. Do you see the relevance of the relevant?
Yeah, well, I
mirroring
mean,
themes?
for a while there was what was oh man, somebody on like Fox News was saying, to try to talk about reopening the economy. They were like, there's worse things than death. And if I have to die for the economy to get started again, like that's just what it's gonna be. Like, somebody said that. And yeah, I do think there's definitely a lack of, as if there could ever be something more important than keeping people alive. As if there's ever anything like, well, keeping people alive is good, but like, also we do need to sell more ice cream. Like, that's not like like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Um, we do need to get more people in here to see plays. Like, no, you should keep people alive. That's number one. Um, yeah, and there is a sense of you know, and I feel it too. Let me tell you, it's very hard to be empathetic for the one the number one source of don't wear a mask. You'll look like a weak idiot if you wear a mask. It's not real. You don't need to. You can wear a mask if you need, if you really feel like you want to, but you know you don't have to. When that person gets coronavirus, it's very hard to feel sorry for them because you brought this on yourself. You did with your actions. You did, um, which I imagine is how. I wasn't really alive for the AIDS pandemic, but I imagine that people felt the same way of like, well, you chose to do the things you did, and that you know you got this disease as a result of your actions. So yeah, there.
It becomes so easy for those with power when they realize that it's not impacting them and their closer circle, it's impacting others, that to like not take it as seriously. And you know, we saw that with the AIDS epidemic, we seen that with the coronavirus pandemic. um, you know, where like when it was, it's the elderly and people of color that are dying from this, and then it becomes less of a concern. Let's open the economy up. um, and I think it like that parallel is something that we definitely saw between both the play and like what we're experiencing right now. um,
Are you pondering?
I don't know.
No. Either way, it was very well said.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, when marginalized communities have to deal with an issue, it's a non-issue to the powers that be. Speaking of COVID-19 and coronavirus, artists have been more often than not put on a hiatus. How are the three of you staying creative during these unprecedented times?
Well, I actually have something I can plug. A couple friends of mine uh, put together a an organization. We're called Zunes Online Productions, and every other Wednesday we get together and do over Zoom readings of plays. We started with Ian Dozier's William Shakespeare Star Wars, where he like rewrote. Started with a New Hope, and then did all the original Star Wars, and all the prequels, and all the sequels. Rewrote those all in verse, and so we all get on Zoom, and like the parts are all divvied up, and we all do it. You can watch those on YouTube, and I do those every other week. So it's been a very rewarding artistic experience. Other than that, this has been the number one thing. Like getting in a room here together and making art with people has been so great. And it's so after not doing it for like 7 months, in my mind I was like, do I even like that? Like, was that even really that important? And then when you do, you're like, oh yeah, this is the best. This is the best, dude.
Well, I've during this time, I've done some fun things. You know, I've done some theater on Zoom and watched some theater on Zoom, some experimental theater and virtual theater, live theater that's virtual. But then, you know, I started to, you know, during the Black Lives Matter movement, I started getting involved with that, and you know, I helped with the Black Lives Matter committee. You know, I'm the executive director of the Multicultural Arts Center in Merced, and you know, up until now, I thought we were doing a pretty good job, but I feel like, you know, we could do more. I could do better. I personally could do better. My organization could do better. And it was time for me to put my energy into that. And so helping out with Black Lives Matter, trying to get some murals up, helping out maybe, you know, when Veterans Day comes in November, having a display for Black veterans, working with the committee on that. Um, Also, the third Tuesday of every month, we have conversations on race with the NAACP, and working with them. Our next um, conversation is October 20th at 6 o'clock. It's free. It's on Facebook Live, or you can go to the Merced chapter in AACP. And this conversation is about Black lives and what it means. And we really want people who don't get it, the people that say, well, all lives matter, that don't understand what this movement is about, that claim that it's socialism or whatever. There's always some other thing than what it actually is. And we're going to have that conversation, and we want to have those people to be a part of that conversation, because we can make changes through the dialogue. We can make the world a better place, and a little bit at a time. I've been working with housing to try to get affordable housing and inclusionary zoning in Merced. And I think that is all inclusive of what we do in the arts. We bring people together. And so I think it's just an extension of what we do. And it gave me a purpose during this time, and then this is actually the first time getting to be in person with people to do a play together, to do something with an objectivity, a point to it, and not online, not in front of your laptop or on your phone, but actually in person. And it was so nice the first time that we got here together, wearing our masks and stuff like that, and say, oh, how we're going to do this. It just really was amazing. And it was like a reunion, because we figure out like 7 years ago was when we did Next Fall here and opened this place, and it's kind of gone full circle. And it was like a lifetime ago, and here we are, doing theater. I mean, theater is going to keep going on. We're going to make it happen. We've got people like Jack Souza, and everyone that works here at the Prospect, making sure that these go. Tracy, all the stuff that you do center stage. John, all the stuff that you do, and that we'll all continue to do. I think this is, put a different perspective on things. And I think it's going to change how we are as artists. I think it has changed who we are as artists. And I think in a lot of ways for the better. And I'm looking forward to getting out of this pandemic. When this is all over, I'm looking forward to us being on stage again, being in that communal experience, feeling the energy of the audience, because that's what we're missing during the reading. That's what we're missing right now. I miss the audience. I miss seeing them. I miss that energy that we get from them. I miss that so much.
I had a very adverse reaction to things going virtual right away. And yeah. And I rejected it. I was just like, I'm waiting this out. I'm not going to be doing any work. And I found my creativity in the kitchen. It had been so long since I was able to really cook, just being in rehearsals all the time, that that's where my creativity was, in the spring and so forth. But we miss it. We miss it. We miss having that relationship with our audience, that dialogue with our audience, that feeling being stuck with our acting partner on a breath and breathing together. And we just miss it so much. And fortunately, I had somebody ask if I would teach a Shakespeare class on Zoom, and I just really miss Shakespeare. And so I had agreed to do it, because I figured that it would be fun, and it was young people, and it actually was an absolutely positive experience, that it made me a little less apprehensive to film as a medium, just because I don't consider myself a film artist. And I really just feel the need that we need to be out there supporting our theaters right now. That's the only way we're going to make it to the other side of this, is if we're out there supporting the theaters who are going to be doing live theater for us, to a live audience in the same space eventually. And I just want to help any theater that's doing the work right now. And I feel that Prospect Theater Project is the place to put that support. They've always chosen shows that are for a dialogue, for us to examine our own place in the world and make positive steps for the future. And it just meant everything to be able to come here and work on this project, even though it was on film, and having to face those fears that I had of like venturing into a medium that I felt very adverse to. And I couldn't. Honestly feel like it couldn't have been a better experience getting to work with these guys, getting to work with the entire tech team, Mark, Jack, Marty, and Andrew, who's been helping out with this part of the process. It's been just such a rewarding experience, and like I'm hopeful for like the next project. Yeah.
That sounds like a wonderful stopping point. Thank you so much, Tracy, John, and Colton for sharing your insights about the play, and thank you all for listening to us today. Once again, our talkbacks are really vital to the mission of Prospect Theater Project, and it's a wonderful way for audience members to engage with the production crew and the cast about the play they've seen. And we appreciate your support throughout this pandemic, and we look forward to bringing you more quality theater in the months to come. Our next event at Prospect Theater Project will be our Radio Cavalcade event. It's Sorry, Wrong Number. It will be on October 31st, Halloween. Tickets are available right now. You can purchase them at prospecttheaterproject.org. Thank you so much for attending. And with that, we will conclude our talkback. Thank you all.